Welcome to the Be Ruthless Show, where we have the conversations that other people don't, the conversations that other people won't. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I'm ready to make a lot of noise and disrupt things, ruthlessly. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Be Ruthless Show. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I am dragging a little bit. We have all just survived daylight savings time. I love the extra daylight. It's worth it to me. And quite honestly, I have been dragging even before that. I've just been not sick, but a little bit lethargic, less energy, just sluggish. How about you? Are you totally energized and zipping through life, or are you having to push yourself a little bit? I am absolutely, some amazing things are happening and I am enjoying everything. I just am going a little bit slower. I'm just like dragging. That's the best way I can describe it. So tell me, I always love hearing from you if you are tuning in live, listening late, where you're coming in from in the world, what the weather's like by you. We've been having some weird weather in Colorado. Not that that's different than any other day here, but I feel like that's also happening everywhere. And weather affects people's moods. It certainly affects mine. And I never understood that as much as I do since I've moved to Colorado. I love sunshine, don't we all? But the blue skies here, it's different. When I travel and am in different places, I notice like this is not as blue of a sky, or it's dreary and cloudy. And the Midwest especially, I'm like, oh my God, how did I live here for 40 years of my life and not miss blue skies? I didn't understand, obviously. It's all I ever knew. But sunshine and daylight are so important. And so, to many, many people, this is an important time of the year because seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. And a lot of people have seasonal depression, feel worse through the winter, and they are coming out of that now. And it is time to look forward to all of the things that either they can't do in the winter or it's harder to do. Just like I'm talking about right now, I'm dragging a little bit. It's harder for me to do pretty much all things right now, not drastically. I'm just dragging. I'm slower. Takes me an extra 5 minutes, a little bit of a push, a little bit of a pep talk. But imagine months of that. Imagine having to do that for any and everything. So, to everyone who really is appreciating this extra daylight and, spring coming, what will you do first? What are you most excited about? How can you carry that attitude and that appreciation even on the dreary days, even when you're dragging? Because I'm not, moping and hanging my head and just calling it quits. I'm giving myself the pep talk. I'm getting through it. It's just taking that extra minute and I'm noticing it. And if that means I change what I eat, or I go to bed a little bit early, or I do an extra 5 minutes of meditation, it's adjusting. And I talk about that so much in a world that doesn't always praise adjusting. I think it's the greatest gift we can give ourselves. And it's a gift I didn't give myself enough of in life. I looked at adjustments as a negative thing. So making a change in your routine or your nutritional plan for the week, or any little thing you can do to get through the harder days, the days that you're slower, that's a win. And on that note, let's talk about what I have in mind for today. I have some big things happening in the Griefhab world. There are a lot of things going on, some events coming up, and I have some speakers who will be visiting and being a part of these things. And some of them are some pretty big names. And they come from some media revenue avenues that I am not familiar with. So I have had to read some things and watch some shows that I am not familiar with. So some reality TV, just some pop stars that I don't know so much about, right? Like everyone knows the Kardashians. Sam doesn't, right? Trendy stuff that everyone knows. Sam doesn't. So been tuning into things that most people might be familiar with. Even the Oscars last night, right? What happens after the Oscars? Everyone starts talking about the best and worst dressed, right? Like some of the people, Sam doesn't know. Some of the designers, even some of the best and worst dressed. And I want to point out that I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of judging and putting a microscope on someone's appearance. Katy Perry, is she pregnant? Why are we judging? Anything at all? I don't care if it's a pretty dress in your opinion or not. If you think somebody wearing jeans instead of a dress means they might be pregnant, the whole conversation pisses me off on 100 levels. All of that is what's wrong with this world. Wear jeans. I will. Don't like dresses. Doesn't mean I'm pregnant. How about that? Okay. Side note. So I've been watching some of these shows where on reality TV, quite honestly, it just seems like people argue. I'm not quite sure of the purpose of the show. But during these arguments, no one wants to apologize. So the title of this episode is the S word. The S word is sorry. And it seems to be really, really difficult for a lot of people. And so I wanted to just talk about the purpose of an apology. Why do you say you are sorry if you do? Do you apologize when you feel that you've made a mistake? Do you apologize for other reasons? Is it difficult for you? I grew up, it's very, very important to me to be honest. It's very important to me to accept responsibility. And so saying I'm sorry is not difficult. It really just is not. So again, I'm baffled at some of these situations that apparently are entertainment for a lot of the world again. So there are people in this world who apologize just to keep the peace. Conflict is stressful, and whether they mean it or not, they want resolution. They want everyone to get along, and an apology is a way to get there. On the other hand, there are people who might never apologize. They might refuse to apologize. Maybe they do not want to admit that they're wrong. Maybe they truly do not believe they're ever wrong. Maybe they can't be imperfect, right? Maybe they just cannot see themselves in that light. And so apologizing means admitting they were wrong. And so that just can't happen. So let's look at what an apology is for you for the other person and for the relationship. An apology can heal a relationship. It can soothe someone else's feelings. It can show respect. It, like I just said, it can show that you accept responsibility, and it can show that you value the relationship. Let's go again to the other side. Not apologizing can harm the relationship. It can hurt someone else's feelings. It can show disrespect. It can show that you do not accept responsibility and that you don't value a relationship. So where do you sit on this spectrum? And do you? Maybe it depends on the situation, right? Maybe it's different every single time. Maybe it depends on this argument, this situation. You have no problem saying I'm sorry. And on the other, you do because you feel strongly that you didn't do anything, right? So maybe you're a type of person that sometimes has no problem and other times does. But why does it matter, right? Like, I think there's a bigger picture. I think that overall, it's more than the S word. There's a bigger lesson or a bigger outcome than the actual words. And that is your relationship with the person, that there is a conflict. But what about your relationship with yourself? Like I said, I grew up being taught certain things. I was taught not to put someone else in a position of having to ask, not to put someone else in a position of wondering, right? Like making it my responsibility. Even if I want the apology, I can still initiate a conversation, right? And I grew up learning to accept responsibility and to understand certain things, that that's not a weakness, that that's not a bad thing, that that is just part of learning and growing and having nothing to do with another person for my individual growth as a human, without anyone else in the picture, with or without, and I'm sorry, what that means for me. So the S word, again, even if there's a situation with someone I'm never going to speak to again, there may or may not be a conversation where someone hears and I'm sorry, but I might have done something where I want to accept responsibility for my own growth. So while I'm looking at these shows, again, that I wouldn't ordinarily watch, but I'm watching because I might be having people at an event and I need to know who they are and what they've done, right? I can't just say, nice to have you here, but I don't know anything about your world. And these people are going back and forth and they're so hurt and they're like begging. All they want is for someone to say, your feelings matter. I didn't mean it. And then there's the different ways they can apologize, right? There's, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry you feel this way. I got over the weekend. I'm sorry this is weighing on you so heavily. Like, when is it going to make you feel okay in the relationship? Because some of these apologies pissed people off more. I'm sorry you feel that way made it worse. Oh my God. Some of these women went through the roof. And I'm trying to think about if how I would feel with that. And I think it was that there wasn't accepting that responsibility, right? It was, I'm sorry you, not I'm sorry I. Right? So ultimately, how do you get closure? How do you move through this world if there's someone who's hurt you and you don't get an apology? Like I said, my mom's an example. She will keep the peace. She will apologize because she hates conflict. She wants people to get along. And it's not worth it to her to argue. While there are others that an apology isn't worth it. It's more important to be right than apologizing. So where in the spectrum are you? And I talked about all of the different things that an apology can mean. It can soothe someone's feelings. That's important to me. But accepting responsibility is also extremely important to me, right? Now, I'm not going to accept responsibility for something I didn't do, but I don't want to leave something unfinished out there in this world. So why does this matter? Are there things in your world that feel undone, unfinished? There are also people that might not be healthy to have a conversation with, right? I've mentioned plenty of times that we get to choose, right? And we get to decide what battles we pick. And I've mentioned that I don't have a relationship with my in-laws. I don't need to pick up the phone and talk about certain things that are unresolved between us. It's not healthy for me to go there. There are other ways that I can have closure in my world for my well-being without speaking directly to them. Some people journal, some people talk out loud to themselves and have a conversation that they, would have with them, but not actually with them. There's ways to get closure without putting yourself in an unhealthy situation. So there's so many choices that people have. I wanted to bring this up just because I'm again watching these things on TV for my research. It's happening in real life in my own world, and it happens everywhere. My clients are going through it, friends go through it, and it's important. I think it's important, even if it's not happening now, because it will. And knowing where you stand so that you don't hurt others for something that's less important, right? I don't want to be stubborn. I don't want to hurt someone else's feelings or leave a relationship because being right is more important. That's not me. So I found all of this valuable because there are times I have wondered if I'm stubborn. I called my dad and some friends 5-10 years ago. Might have been 10-15. I'm bad with this time thing. And asked, can I be stubborn? I certainly can be with sports or competition. And they said, no, I was surprised. I thought they would have said yes. So that was awakening for me, eye-opening. But we all do it our own ways, right? You can take a night, a week, work through it in your own way. The important thing is to be true to yourself, to do it your way, and to remember that you don't want to, I talked on the last episode about passive and aggressive. And being aggressive can mean that you're putting yourself first at the expense of someone else's feelings, right? We don't want to disrespect, ignore, not consider someone else's feelings. Because, right? We don't want to make ours more important, but we also don't want to ignore ours. So my mom ignores hers by keeping the peace. And keeping the peace is wonderful if we also consider our feelings and needs. We don't want to ignore anyone's. So if you want practice, there are so many different ways to apologize, and communicators would say there are right and wrong ways, right? Aggressive ways, passive ways, ways that you can only include yourself and forget other people, not great. Ways that you can only include other people and not yourself, not great, right? So you can reach out. There are articles, there are podcasts, there are books just about apologizing. And I could have called this the A word, but I thought people would have thought that I was talking about assholes. So again, thank you so much for being a part of my world. There is a lot happening, and I have been going through some stuff, and the universe will always take care of what we cannot handle ourselves. And so I have had a few bumps, and I'm so grateful. You always get there, even when it feels bumpy and you might not understand it. I am so grateful for all of you, for everyone in my world, for what the universe does take care of. There are some things that I needed removed, for things that no longer serve me, people who no longer serve me. So I am welcoming all of the beautiful things that are coming into my world. If you are listening live, Relief from Grief Workshop is tomorrow, Tuesday, March 12th. You can tune in, and Team Ruthless meets on Wednesdays. And I have a new group, Completely Ruthless, that is group plus one-on-one with me. I've never offered anything like it. It's amazing, and puts the combination of group and one-on-one together so you don't have to choose. I also want to remind everyone that you don't have to work with me. You can reach out and I will help connect you with who or what you're looking for. And I also don't turn anyone away. So please reach out. There are always scholarships and funding options available, big announcements coming soon. So please reach out, even if you think you can't afford or fit into a program. There is a way, I promise. So thank you so much for being a part of my world. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, always be ruthless. Thanks so much for listening today. Your support means everything to me, truly. If this podcast resonates with you, please do me a favor and join in the Ruthless movement by making some noise and doing one of these 4 things. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell a friend so we can break stigmas even faster. Leave a review so people can see what you think of the show. And last, if you want to learn more about me and be a part of the Griefhab community, please head on over to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for spending your time with us, and see you next week.